Chapter 6. The Threat. Weeks began to pass. Elvira taught them all she knew about healing, and Ruger returned with an ample supply of various sunstones. Some were more heat-focused and others light-focused. Most wouldn't last a full night. Bard sighed. If only he could procure a few sunstones for themselves. It would make travel easier as they could stop later and begin earlier, without having to worry about shades. But if he were to do that safely, he would need at least 4 bright sunstones, ones that lasted a whole night. It would also reduce the time spent on gathering fuel for the fires, or forest craft materials for the light sticks. Ruger held optimism that the villagers would accept these sunstones, so their lives would be easier, but Elvira's point that her brother would likely see it as a threat was a big concern. His control came from rationing provisions through the winter. If they didn't need much more than sunlight to charge the stones, then it would make most supply stockpiles become irrelevant. The main concerns with winter was the cold, the dark and food. Sunstones if in ample supply could accommodate the dark and the cold, which was a big contributor to his control. The more Bard learned of this brother of Elvira, the more he didn't like him. It was contrary to the ways of the wood, the ways of an elder. Sen herself seemed equally upset about this not be a problem for ye to be solving, Ruger pointed out as they sat around the dinner table. The kids paused but didn't seem to understand their father, so they resumed playing with Kai through the window. He's right. It's our concern, not something an outsider needs to get involved in. Oh, course, I'd like your opinions on a different matter, Ruger said, and it caused the group to still. There be more shades in the cities than normal, and a large one that seemed to have 6 glowing eyes was among them. Sen shrunk back, quite visibly. So you have encountered this shade before? Elvira asked. Yes, it was the one that led the shades to destroy my village, Bard said softly, and Elvira looked struck and then moved towards her kids. Not another word. We will discuss this after they are in bed, she ordered, and Bard agreed. Once the kids were put to bed, Elvira closed the door and joined them again around the table. You said your village was destroyed by the shades? Elvira asked quietly. Bard lowered his voice as well. Yes, a 6-eyed, large shade led them in and everyone was killed. I escaped to the woods with my mother, Bard answered. He gave varying details, depending on how he saw the two react to his words. How dreadful. I thought ye were like me, a wandering type, restless, but I never thought that you and I shared a story. You, Ruger? Bard asked, surprised. You come from another village that was destroyed. Ruger let out a long hum. 'Tis not a past I like to be speaking about, though. I ne'er saw a 6-eyed shade like ye did. I was saved by the chief when he came to find survivors. So, Sen said as she looked down. What do we do? The silence lingered while they thought. What are your thoughts, dear? Elvira asked of Ruger. I be worried they be gathering just like when me own village was wiped out. 'Tis not a good sign. Bard, do you think there are more like the 6-eyed shade, like there are multiple storm shades? Sen asked, and Bard was about to answer when Ruger and Elvira jumped in. Shock storm shades, they said in unison. Bard eyed the door and the couple lowered their voice. It's possible, Sen, but as for storm shades, I've never encountered them except in the southwest, around Steadfast. It would be troublesome if they ever left that region, and here I be thinking I knew a lot about shades. Ruger grumbled. You stay in your region? No doubt, so you can provide and raise a family. We however are farther traveled and encounter the shades regularly. There is quite a variety of them, but this 6-eyed one, Bard mused, drawing the conversation back to the original topic. I've always seen it with a blue glow about the eyes. What did you see, Ruger? Blue eyes? Just as ye be describing. Then I prefer to assume there is only one. Why is that? Elvira asked. I've only ever seen one, never more together. I've also traveled for over half my life now. I've crossed deserts, climbed mountains, and so on. The few times I have seen it was after or during the destruction of a village, city or town. Only one other time have I seen it, and that was on our way here. Bard paused. They saw it near Steadfast and Abundance. Were the dryads in danger, or was there something else at play here? He checked his tokens and seeing them fine, shook his head, discarding the notion. No sign? Was a good thing, Bard? Sen asked, worried. It's nothing. If they are gathering in the cities, then we will need to be cautious. I'd err on the side that they might target this place next. Well, it'd be a good thing I got more sunstones, Ruger laughed, looking pleased indeed. But the rest of the village isn't going to listen to us, not while my brother is in control, and certainly not while it's winter, Elvira pointed out, reminding them of their previous discussions. Bard bit on his lip. She was right, and that only created a larger problem. How would everyone else be able to stay safe? He closed his eyes as he pondered on it. It was the role of an elder to protect those in his reach, even if they didn't follow the elder. Steadfast did that, and the trees outside her protection were destroyed. But she also didn't reach out to them to call them into her fold. Was there something else he could do? He wondered what father would do in this situation. Once again, he was reminded of his mission. Their discussion didn't lead to any conclusions before they were forced to retire to their bedrooms. Bard, could I sing to some trees and bring them here to fight the shades? Or could we do that in the city? Sen's questions was a good one, and he was grateful she had waited to ask until they had secluded themselves. Even with the main watch gone, there could still be those who tried to cozy up to the older brother who had watched them, and precaution was still necessary. It's a fine idea, Sen, but you are aware of the concerns, right? Yes. If the shades attack, and we get spotted, no doubt we would be thrown out, and the city is teeming with them. We lack the sunstones to protect ourselves, and they could always find ways to come at us. We would be facing the horde alone. All good points. She did have more experience with tactics, so this was in a similar vein to her expertise, that would put us in a tight spot on all sides, no matter what way we went. But leaving the village to their own devices and defenses is not the way of the elders, is it? Sen pointed out. No, it is not, Bard agreed. He had also been thinking along that line of thought. So Sen, we don't have the answer yet. Have a bit of patience while we gather information. At the very least, we need to find ways to socialize with the villagers so they will trust us and be more willing to accept our aid. Assuming it comes down to that, Bard calmed his tone and his speed, hoping to have her slow down as well. It's possible the shades don't come until after winter is over, but then, Sen said, and Bard saw she didn't like that idea. Yes, they would be gone, and Ruger and his family would have to face it on their own. The village might not be savable at that point. Sen, call it a strange idea, but can you have trees and plants wait to spring a trap? What? Sen's surprise was humorous, well, yes, but why? If we gathered some trees covertly and had them hide under the snow and in the ground, could they come up and defend the village, even after we are gone? Sen seemed ponderous at this. So it was feasible, but she likely knew of a condition this might not work. If it were the silver wood trees, then maybe, but just any old tree or a different dryadic tree, then probably not. And if you were here to command them, then yes, they could possibly come up and defend. But Sen seemed hesitant. It would lead into our earlier conclusions. Her nod was all he needed for now. That idea could be implemented if they began to run out of options. The nearest trees would be about a day's ride on Kai. They needed more observations on the shades. If they were coming, when they were coming, how they were coming. It all mattered in what choices they would have available to them.